Train Institute was surprised at what happened because the break in the levee took place, quote, along a section that was just reinforced with a concrete wall 7 feet thick. One Alfred C. Naomi, Special Projects Manager for the Army Corps of Engineers, said, now listen carefully. Naomi said, now remember, the chicken shit mayor who first had a ball before they took it,
that's right,
is going to say no. He's the one saying, oh, look at all that water. It had to be the water. He's said to say that. Now, here's what the Army Corps of Engineers, the people who built this shit, said. Naomi says, Special Projects Manager for the Corps, there were still unclear hints why the main breach in the flood barriers occurred along the 17th Street Canal. Normally a conduit for vast streams of water pumped out of the perpetually waterlogged city each day, and which did not take the main force of the waves rolling in the lake. In other words, the place where you pump it out is where it broke, which doesn't make any sense, because that would be the place where the pressure was being relieved.
Right.
He said that a low spot marked on survey charts at the levee near the spot was ruptured and it was unrelated, and that the depression was where a new bridge crossed the main narrow canal at the lakefront. He stated that the low spot marked on survey charts of the levee near the spot, and that the depression was where a new bridge crossed the narrow canal near the lakefront. Now, this would completely disqualify the claims by the authorities that a dip in the retaining line or walls might have allowed water to slop over and start to collapse. A more profound series of ear witnesses, this is ear witness accounts, were stated in many blogs. Now, a blog, if everybody knows, is a log, a personal log of people. And he said, these are average citizens. For example, a woman named Andrea Garland, a white woman now relocated in Texas. She wrote, quote, also heard that part of the reason our house flooded is they dynamited part of the levee after the first section broke. They did this to prevent uptown, the rich part of town, from being flooded. Apparently, they used too much dynamite, thus flooding part of the bywater. So now, I know who's responsible for flooding my house. Not Katrina, but my government. This is the exact same scenario that was played out some 78 years ago, 1927. The Mississippi River broke the banks in 145 places, depositing water at depths up to 30 feet and covering some 27,000 square miles of land in 1927. This past disaster helped shift the demographics of our entire nation, causing tens of thousands of Delta living Africans to migrate into the northern states. That year, it was found that the white New Orleans business class had pressured the state government to dynamite the levee upstream, releasing the waters into mainly black areas of the Delta in 1927. In fact, that year, check this, black workers were forced to clean up and rebuild and work on flood relief at gunpoint. Wow. Levees were also blown up after the hurricane that was called Betsy in 1965. So what makes you think they didn't blow it up 18 days ago? Check it. After Katrina had struck, 25 ear witnesses stated that they distinctly heard muffled but powerful explosions just before the waters thundered into the city. FEMA operatives are now under orders to discredit their accounts or to find these ear witnesses and eliminate them. However, an American, French, and Russian coalition of friends are keeping most of these people hidden. The London Observer newspaper carried the story of a 19-year-old boy who was a meat cutter named Correll Williams, The story said, quote, Williams only left, listen, this is from London, you didn't hear this shit here. The interview said, Williams only left his apartment after the authorities made the decision to flood his district in an apparent attempt to slush off some of the water that had submerged a neighborhood district. Like hundreds of others, he had heard the news of the decision to flood his district over the radio. I want that broadcast.
All right.
I'm putting y'all on it. Check the BBC logs and files. Check something that might have been out there that may have recorded that event. But it was said over the radio they were going to flood. The authorities had given the people of the district until 5 p.m. on Tuesday to get out. After that, they would open the floodgates. When questioned about the sabotage of the levees at press conferences, a smiling Bill Clinton looked surprised and dumbfounded at the question. He stared straight ahead for a moment and simply walked away. Again, many reports claim that a Category 5 hurricane hit the Gulf Coast of New Orleans. That what you heard?
Yeah.
A Category 5 hurricane. This is the propagandist lie. A cover-up by the media at the Pentagon's orders. A manipulation of the numbers to cover their tracks. The storm called Katrina was artificially amped to a Cat 5. But by a scalar weapon called HARP. But by the time it hit land, the geometric tracks or vectors first created by the chemtrails, which are used to give direction to the scalar wave energy, had dropped the storm's intensity to a Cat 2 to 3. Just 100 miles an hour of wind, max, when it passed over the city. Not the Cat 4 or Cat 5 that they reported. Hurricane Betsy in 1965 was a whole lot stronger, and it only killed 75 people. No, beloved, this was a cover-up of a different kind. This was mass murder to prevent something or someone from getting out. In fact, the residents of New Orleans in the early stages of the aftermath of the storm did not report any significant damages to the infrastructure of the low-lying areas of the city. However, the storm surge after it hit land did pump enormous amounts of water as it curved eastward, where it caused the Pontchartrain River to rise 3 to 5 feet, which began to threaten the richer neighborhoods, like the gated community of the Audubon, with the subsequent flooding of the levees. Now, I want to tell you something very quickly. For the last 20 years, the Army Corps of Engineers, under the orders of the U.S. government and the corporations, have been building artificial roads back and forth across the 385 miles of marshlands and wetlands that would have acted as the slough point for the water. Today, only 35 miles of marshland was left. There was no place for the water to go. No place for the water to go. The marshlands were gone. So now, the sabotage, and I call it sabotage because of the following. We must look at the forensics of the storm, or we would let the lying bastards of the government and the media press get away with mass murder. If you wanted to destroy the levee and better conceal the act of sabotage, one break would have done it. It would have appeared more random. But 3 virtually simultaneous breaches in 3 relatively distant locations. 1, 2, 3.
Strategic areas?
Strategic areas. 3 breaches occurring at 3 separate events within the same time window at concrete reinforced sites. Now, to cover their mission to blow the levees, commit mass murder, and to cover up possibly an attack on a bioweapons lab containing top secret biowarfare strategies for the U.S. and a cache of bird flu bacillus. Remember they kept telling you that a bird flu is heading this way? And the introductory maneuvers of the infamous Rex 84 program about an hour or less before the levee was set to blow, about 4 a.m., covert ops most likely broadcasted reports of gunfire and looting in those areas where the sabotage was to take place. This is the areas where they reported the gunfire. Are you getting the picture?
Right.
The levees were breached in 3 separate locations in the very early hours of the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, when a majority of children, the sick and the elderly were asleep.
Right.
And it was done the day after the storm.
That's right. That's right.
The flooding didn't happen when the hurricane passed. I would figure if the hurricane was over there, boom, with all the force of water pounding for all those hours, it would have gone already. In fact, initial reports stated that the breaches completely puzzled the Army Corps of Engineers because the longest breach was not on the lake, but on a canal used for pumping water out of the city. Those who carried out the sabotage mission under cover of darkness eliminated any straggling eyewitnesses who may have seen them. Thus, people were reportedly found with their throats cut or bullets in their head from a silenced weapon. In fact, the finding of such bodies forced the military to cordon off certain sections from reporters that would have revealed the dead bodies with military bullets and knife slices across their throat. In fact, according to an Associated Press report that was quickly and mysteriously pulled, 5 men found shot to death on the Levee areas of New Orleans were actually Department of Defense workers.
Yes. Yes.
Now, wait a minute. Who shot them?
Right.
Their own people. What happened was they were trying to cover up the crime. Why? Because some bridge engineers and structural engineers were coming to examine the breach. And they were there trying to get up, because what happened was, the reason why they were going there was because divers had found pieces of the wall on the ground that had forensics of explosions. So that brought them out. So they had to go there and cover the shit up. But when they came up on them, they said, oh shit. Pow, pow.
Right.
Gun battle. The 17th Street Levee. This is a blog from a New Orleans evacuee named Claire Barthollet. The 17th Street Levee was bombed by the Army Corps of Engineers to save the gated towns of Audubon and the French quarters protected. The 9th Ward was sacrificed. Remember, I just said that. People are afraid to speak out. Everyone who was near there heard the bombings. They bombed 7 times. That's why they didn't fix the levees. 20 feet of water. The alligators at night. People dying in the water. Devoured. They let the parishes go. Not the city center. A tourist trap. They didn't save the human life. There's film of the alligators devouring bodies and dogs carrying off pieces of bodies. I'm trying to get that. From evacuee Diane Stafford, another one. They blew the levee to save the city, saying that a large barge broke through. I tell you what, for all you rocksters, I think you should go and get Led Zeppelin's old record.